Welcome back to Books and Bytes, everybody. Today we're diving into Julia Galef's The Scout Mindset.
Why some people see things clearly and others don't, right?
Yeah.
That subtitle is a real attention grabber.
Yeah, it kind of makes you think, am I seeing things clearly? This book is all about that, about why we struggle so much to change our minds, even when, the evidence is staring us in the face.
And more importantly, what we can do about it, how to get better at, seeing the world more objective.
Right. So Galef kicks things off with this idea of two mindsets, right? The soldier mindset and the scout mindset. And she uses those terms very deliberately.
Totally. It's such a powerful analogy, right? Are you hunkering down, defending your beliefs, or are you out there exploring, looking for the truth, wherever it might lead?
Okay, so let's start with that soldier mindset. It's like you've got your beliefs, you've built up these fortifications around them.
And you're ready to fight to protect them. Any challenge feels like an attack.
Yeah, and Galef argues that this is driven by something called motivated reasoning.
Motivated reasoning, that's a sneaky one. It's like you're not really searching for the truth. You're searching for evidence that supports what you already believe.
It's like cherry-picking the facts, right? Or interpreting things in a way that confirms your bias.
Exactly. And the Dreyfus affair is a perfect example of this. I mean, even when evidence came out proving Dreyfus was innocent,
people who were convinced of his guilt, they just wouldn't budge.
They found ways to twist the new information to make it fit their existing narrative. It's amazing how powerful that pull can be.
I mean, we see this all the time, right? Like with political biases.
Oh, absolutely. And present the same data to people from different political sides, and you'll get wildly different interpretations.
Yeah, and it's not even malicious, right? It's just how our brains are wired. We want to protect our beliefs, our sense of identity.
And that's where all these different biases come in. You've got confirmation bias, where you only seek out info that confirms your existing beliefs.
Then there's disconfirmation bias, where you actively try to debunk anything that challenges your views.
And then there's identity protective cognition. That's a big one. Like if your beliefs are tied to your social group or your political affiliation.
Challenging those beliefs feels like you're challenging your whole identity. No wonder those conversations can get so heated, right?
Right. So deeply personal.
Yeah.
But okay, enough about the soldier mindset. What about the scout mindset? This is where things get interesting.
Yeah, so the scout mindset is all about genuine curiosity, being open to new information, even if it means changing your mind.
It's about wanting to see the world as it really is, not as you wish it to be.
And Galef gives some great examples of this in the book, like Jeff Bezos with Amazon.
Yeah, he created this culture where it was okay to admit when a strategy wasn't working and to pivot quickly. Instead of sticking with a failing plan just because you'd invested a lot in it.
That takes guts to admit you're wrong and change course.
Total scout mindset.
Right.
And then there's Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner. He was famous for actively seeking out arguments against his own investment ideas.
Like he deliberately tried to poke holes in his own thinking.
Yeah. His logic was, if he couldn't find a good counter-argument, then his original idea was probably solid. It's all about constantly testing your assumptions.
So, okay, the scout mindset sounds great in theory, but what's in it for us? Why should we care about this stuff?
Well, the benefits are pretty huge. First off, better decision making. If you're seeing the world more clearly, you're going to make better decisions. Simple as that.
Makes sense. You're not letting your biases cloud your judgment.
And it also boosts your credibility. People trust those who are willing to admit they're wrong and change their minds based on new information.
Like, if a leader can own up to a mistake, they actually gain respect, right? It shows humility and integrity.
Totally. And on a personal level, a scout mindset can help you avoid a lot of self-deception. You're not wasting energy trying to rationalize falsehoods.
It's like you're freeing up your mental bandwidth to actually engage with reality, even if it's not what you want to see.
Exactly. So, okay, how do we know if we're stuck in that soldier mindset? What are some signs to look out for?
Yeah, good question. What are the red flags?
Well, one big one is if you find yourself more concerned with winning arguments than actually understanding the issue.
Like if being right is more important than getting to the truth.
Yep. And another sign is getting defensive when your beliefs are challenged. Feeling like it's a personal attack.
Yeah, defensiveness is definitely a giveaway. It's like your beliefs are so intertwined with your ego that any questioning feels threatening.
Right. And if you tend to ignore facts that contradict your views, that's another sign. Or if you feel a sense of satisfaction when your side is proven right, even if it means ignoring the bigger picture.
Yeah, that's definitely not the scout mindset.
Nope. So to help us identify these tendencies in ourselves, Galef offers some really helpful self-reflection questions.
Ooh, I like those. What are some of the questions we should be asking ourselves?
Well, one is, if I were wrong, what evidence would convince me? Like, really force yourself to think about what it would take to change your mind.
That's a tough one, but important.
And another one is, would I still believe this if I had grown up in a different culture? That can help you see how much your beliefs are shaped by your environment, not just pure logic.
Yeah, that one really gets you thinking about your own biases. Okay, so we've talked about the soldier mindset, the scout mindset.
The benefits of being a scout, the signs you might be a soldier.
Now, the big question, how do we actually cultivate that scout mindset? How do we get better at this stuff?
Well, it takes effort, for sure. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
But one important thing is to create this sense of emotional safety around being wrong.
Like, we need to stop seeing being wrong as this huge failure, right?
Exactly. It's okay to change your mind. It actually shows that you're learning and growing. Richard Feynman, the famous physicist, he embraced being wrong as part of the scientific process.
Yeah, it's like, if you're so scared of being wrong, you're never going to take intellectual risks, You're going to cling to your beliefs no matter what.
Totally. And another key thing is developing intellectual humility.
Intellectual humility. What's that all about?
It's about being comfortable with uncertainty, with saying, I don't know, or I could be wrong. Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, he had this great phrase, strong opinions, weakly held.
Ooh, I like that. Strong opinions, weakly held.
Yeah, it means like have strong convictions, but be open to changing them when presented with new evidence.
Yeah.
Don't be so rigid.
To be confident, but not arrogant.
Exactly. And another important thing is actively seeking out contradictory evidence. Don't just wait for it to come to you, go looking for it.
Deliberately try to find arguments that challenge your views.
Exactly. Bridgewater Associates, the hedge fund, they actually have a whole culture built around this. They encourage employees to challenge each other's ideas constantly.
It's like they're intentionally trying to poke holes in their own thinking.
Yeah, to get to the best possible answer, even if it means admitting they were wrong. So if you hold a certain belief, make a conscious effort to find well-reasoned arguments against it.
Don't just stay in your own echo chamber.
Right. Now, even when you're open to changing your mind, it can still feel awkward, like you're losing face or admitting defeat. So Galef offers some strategies for changing your mind gracefully.
Oh, that's helpful. Because, nobody likes to feel like they were wrong.
So one strategy is to reframe it as a sign of strength. Like, I used to believe X, but after considering Y, I've realized Y is more accurate. You're presenting it as a learning process.
It's not a defeat, it's growth.
Exactly. You can also acknowledge partial truths. Like, my initial understanding focused on A, but now I recognize that B is also important, and that changes my overall perspective.
You're not completely throwing out your old belief, you're just refining it.
Right. You can also point to external authorities, like, based on what I've learned from this expert, my previous understanding was incomplete.
You're shifting the blame, so to speak?
In a way, yeah. You're saying it's not that I was stupid, it's just that I had incomplete information. And Galef gives some great examples of this, like Elon Musk, constantly revising his strategies at Tesla and SpaceX.
And Bill Gates, changing his views on philanthropy as he learns more.
Exactly. It's about being open to new information and adjusting your course. Okay, now let's talk about some of those mind tracks that Galef lays out. These are the cognitive biases that can really trip us up.
Yeah, the things that keep us stuck in that soldier mindset.
So we've already talked about motivated reasoning and confirmation bias, but there are so many more. Like the straw man fallacy.
The straw man, yeah. That one always gets me.
It's when you misrepresent someone else's argument to make it easier to attack. Like instead of engaging with their actual point, you create this distorted version of it.
It's like arguing against a scarecrow instead of a real person.
Yeah, exactly. And it happens all the time, especially in political debates. Another common trap is the false dichotomy.
False dichotomy, that sounds familiar.
It's also known as the black or white fallacy. It's when you present a situation as having only two options when, in reality, there are many more possibilities.
Like you're either with us or against us, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it oversimplifies things and shuts down any nuanced discussion. Another one is the sunk cost fallacy.
Oh, I've definitely fallen into that one before.
It's when you keep investing in something just because you've already invested so much, even if it's clearly not working anymore.
Like staying in a bad relationship or pouring more money into a failing business.
Exactly. You feel like you can't give up now because you've already put in so much.
It's like throwing good money after bad.
Yep. Then there's the overconfidence effect.
Overconfidence, that's a dangerous one.
It's when you overestimate your own knowledge and abilities. You're like, most people think they're an above-average driver.
Statistically, that's impossible, right?
Yeah, but we all tend to think we're better than average. And then there's hindsight bias. That's the I knew it all along phenomenon.
Oh, yeah. After something happens, it always seems so obvious.
Exactly. But the truth is, you probably didn't know it all along. You're just rewriting history in your head. And then there's the availability heuristic.
The availability what?
It's when you judge the likelihood of something based on how easily you can recall examples of it. You know, like if you hear about a lot of plane crashes on the news, you might overestimate the risk of flying.
Even though it's statistically much safer than driving.
Right. It's because those vivid examples are more available in your memory. Okay, let's keep going. We've got the halo effect.
The halo effect.
That's when one positive attribute of a person influences your perception of their other attributes. Like if someone is attractive, you might also assume they're intelligent or kind.
It's like one good quality creates this halo around them.
Yeah, exactly. Then there's the illusion of explanatory depth.
The illusion of what now?
Explanatory depth. It's when you think you understand something until you actually try to explain it to someone else.
Oh, I've definitely experienced that before.
Like, you might think you understand how a zipper works, but if someone asked you to explain it step by step, you might realize you don't actually know.
It's like you have this surface level understanding, but not the deep knowledge.
Right. And then there's the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Dunning-Kruger, that one's a classic.
It's when people with low competence in an area overestimate their ability, while experts tend to underestimate theirs.
It's like the less you know, the more confident you are.
Exactly. And it can be really dangerous because it leads to bad decisions. All right. Next up, we have survivorship bias.
Survivorship bias,
It's when you only focus on the successful examples in a particular field and ignore all the failures. Like if you only read biographies of successful entrepreneurs, you might get this distorted view of what it takes to succeed.
Because you're not seeing all the people who tried and failed.
Right, you're only seeing the survivors. And there's the just world fallacy.
The just world fallacy, what's that?
It's the belief that the world is inherently fair and people get what they deserve. It can lead to blaming victims for their misfortune instead of acknowledging systemic issues or bad luck.
It's like everything happens for a reason, that kind of thinking.
Yeah, it's a comforting belief, but it can be really harmful. Okay, a few more to go. We've got the self-serving bias.
Self-serving sounds about right.
It's when you take credit for your successes, but blame external factors for your failures.
We all do that to some extent, right?
Yeah, it's human nature, but it's important to be aware of it. And then there's the fundamental attribution error.
Fundamental attribution error, that's a mouthful.
It's when you overemphasize personality traits and underestimate the influence of the situation when explaining other people's behavior. You know, like if someone cuts you off in traffic, you might assume they're just a jerk.
Instead of considering that they might be having a bad day or rushing to the hospital or something.
Exactly. We tend to judge people's character based on their actions without considering the context. Okay, almost done. We've got the bandwagon effect.
Bandwagon effect. Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It's when you adopt beliefs or behaviors just because they're popular.
Like following trends.
Yeah, even if you don't really understand them or agree with them. It's about fitting in. And then there's loss aversion.
Loss aversion.
It's the tendency to feel the pain of a loss more strongly than the pleasure of an equivalent gain.
Like you'd rather avoid losing $10 than gain $10.
Exactly. It's why people hold on to losing investments for too long. Okay, just a few more. We've got the anchoring bias.
Anchoring bias, what's that one?
It's when you're unduly influenced by the first piece of information you receive, even if it's irrelevant. Like if you're negotiating a salary and the employer throws out a really high number first, you might be anchored to that number, even if it's not realistic.
It sets the bar, even if it's an artificial bar.
Exactly. And then there's the IKEA effect.
IKEA effect. Interesting name.
It's when you overvalue things that you've created yourself. You know, like you might think your DIY project is worth more than it actually is because you put so much effort into it.
We're all a little bit sentimental about the things we make.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing, but it's important to be aware of it. Okay, two more. We've got the peak end rule.
Peak end rule, what's that all about?
It's the tendency to judge an experience based on its most intense moment and its ending, rather than the overall experience.
So like, a vacation might be ruined by one bad experience, even if the rest of it was great.
Yeah, Or a good experience at the end can make you forget about some bad parts in the middle. And finally, we have the endowment effect.
Endowment effect, last one.
It's similar to the IKEA effect, but it's about ownership in general. You tend to overvalue things you own just because you own them.
Like you might be reluctant to sell something for its fair market value just because you're attached to it.
Exactly. It's that sense of ownership that inflates the value in your mind. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We sure have. All these mind traps, it's like a minefield out there.
Yeah, it's no wonder we struggle to think clearly sometimes. But the good news is, just being aware of these biases is a huge step in the right direction.
It's like once you know the traps are there, you can start to avoid them.
Exactly. So, to sum up, Julia Galef's The Scout Mindset is all about recognizing our natural tendency towards that soldier mindset and learning how to cultivate that scout mindset.
It's about being curious, open-minded, and willing to change our minds when presented with new evidence.
And it's about understanding that our beliefs are tools, not treasures. They're meant to help us navigate the world, not to be defended at all costs.
So what does this all mean for you, dear listener? It's an invitation to examine your own thinking and see where you might be falling into those soldier mindset traps.
And to start practicing those scout mindset skills like intellectual humility, seeking out diverse perspectives, and being open to changing your mind.
It's a journey, but it's worth it. And if you want to dive deeper into all this, grab a copy of The Scout Mindset from the link in the description.
And be sure to subscribe to Books and Bytes for more deep dives into fascinating and thought-provoking books.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Until next time.